Hey, this is Trekland HQ, and we are live. Hey, Star Trek last weekend, FOMO, NYC, and DFW. Yeah, today on number 328 of Trekland Tuesdays Live. There it is, with me, Dr. Trek, Larry Nemechek, coming at you from right here in the heart of Trekland through Portal 47 and Trekland Treks 2 for some sanity, clarity, and a bigger picture in all things Star Trek. So I am glad to be back with you for another Tuesday. I hope you're doing well where you are. Hey, I'm thrilled to see a lot of familiar faces who are going to be popping up in the chat. But if you are new to Trekland Tuesdays Live and all things Trekland, welcome, welcome. First thing you should do is jump into the chat and introduce yourself. Let us know where you're coming from. What's the weather like? What's going on where you are? What the veterans will tell you is, number one, if you're coming on YouTube or Twitch, you will see everybody's comments. If you're on Facebook, you're only seeing Facebook only. And remember, if you're on YouTube, you can throw some silver my way and do a super chat question that I will see as a priority. Otherwise, I'm going to get off on a little soapbox here, do a little theme, do a little tangent, and then we'll take a mini break. I'm actually going to look at the parrots this week via TV Geek, and I should be selling that for commercial time, I don't know. And then we'll dive full headlong into the chat, all right? So I am not ignoring you, especially folks on Twitch. Twitch has really evolved, isn't it? I mean, has it gotten less spastic? Is that the expectation now? No, we will get to the chat full on after I finish up here. And I especially want to get on to the day because it's the middle of October. We are full bore into fall and football season. And just a quick reminder that it is an excellent time to plan a Trekland Trek. Either you're coming to LA or maybe you should think about it. And if you have a spare day or even two in your itinerary, it's a perfect time to get with me. We will set up your own custom away mission. We'll visit 4 location, not studio sets, but location sites out in the wild. There's over 50 now. Thank you, Picard, for giving us over 10 here recently. Yeah, there's a ton of them. I'll work with you, do all the things, host you, pick you up, take you home to your hotel, wrangle all your stuff. Anyway, Trekland Treks, check it out at my site or just go to treklandtreks.com. It's a lot of fun. And I think we'll have some veterans on this call, perhaps. No, it is a great time to be trekking along, but I tell you what, I have a confession to make. We've had, the acronyms of the day. One of them, well, I started off with it. One of them has been FOMO, fear of missing out. And that's what I grew up with. As we do the Trek Files, my podcast for Roddenberry, and we look at documents and memos and think of what was going on with Trek in the 60s, much less the 70s and the 80s and the early 90s even. I remember that feeling of being stuck in Oklahoma as a kid and thinking I would never see New York or LA, much less get to do something cool with Trek associated. I mean, I went for years thinking I'd never see Chicago or Denver. But no, when I got enough to be in charge of my own destiny, that started to change. And then, of course, we moved out here in the 90s. And I kind of got a little involved with Star Trek after that. So it's, on one hand, the modern world, and I say all the time, forget about paying for Star Trek. God meant for Star Trek to be made in LA. But I got to admit, not on this economic scale, when it costs so much more for LA production costs than it does in Toronto. So that's just going to be a fact. So I even have my own little doses of FOMO now, unless there's something, unless it's a junket, something special's going on. But we're so blessed and lucky to have not only the LA market and all the actors and writers and creatives, the Americans anyway, most of them live in greater LA, that we also have San Diego Comic-Con, we have Vegas Trek, obviously, and now Creation's doing a San Fran next spring. Did you see this? And with the mission program suspended, if not kaput, which is going to be a traveling site, things are still pretty West Coast based, but occasionally. And I know the fandom, the numbers are there. Obviously, we have so many good friends around New York, around Philly and DC, and up and down the seaboard, and even the East Coast Southern fans, which Dragon Con goes a long way to supplying, obviously, and all the Florida fandom. But a lot of times I watch, unless someone's going to send a golden carriage for me, I watch what's going on the East Coast with a little bit of FOMO, knowing that we probably get the bulk of it here. But even having New York fans, having events for fandom there, and with Toronto being the real de facto capital of Star Trek now, at least the shooting stages, that's just par for the course. And you know what? It's not like the 80s and 90s. We have YouTube, we have the internet, we've got people tweet storming up a storm. It's not long until we get news out of those places. And that's what happened this weekend. Yeah, we had Comic-Con, we had Vegas this year. Since then, the writers have settled, and Paramount Plus has shown that they're going to still have a big convention show. So yeah, all the headlines coming out of New York Comic-Con this week. Sure, I missed being there a little bit. Even some of the merch coming out, even the Hero Within's merch and some of the other folks that are coming out with cool jackets and things. What was funny, though, as I FOMO'd about New York Comic-Con, I've been to New York Comic-Con once in 2010, and I was amazed at how underwhelming it was, not knowing it was only their 4th year. It was the baby years of Comic-Con madness, and it's grown a little since then. But it was cool to watch the headlines like everybody else. So yeah, I wasn't there. I didn't get to do, media rounds, didn't get to have drinks later on, but it was cool to see the news coming out. What threw me about it, though, was watching, I almost titled today's show News or Not, because I saw some of the headlines that people have gone back to kind of massage a little, was that, hey, Strange New Worlds is almost ready to shoot. Now, given that we are, let me back up a minute. It was cool that the original planning for the presentation might have resembled San Diego when the writers and the actors were both still on strike. Having the writers settled and voted, 98% was it? And thinking that was going to be pioneering the way for the actors now to settle. Now that the new language, the new paradigms are in place to play with, people see where this is going and how to talk about it and deal and do deals. Where are the numbers? How the math? What's going to be counted and how things would be? What's the transparency and the rating systems metering going to look like? Looked like that was all set up finally. Reruns and transparency and eyeballs in a streaming world and all that. Didn't happen. So, yay. You got to see Alex, who's honoring his WGA creds there. You got to see Mike McMahon. You got to see the folks there live giving headlines. It didn't have to be a series of videos. They didn't have to hire a shill. I'm kidding, Scott. Like Scott Mantz got to be the face of Paramount here, who wasn't, strike beholden. So no, you had Alex and you had Mike McMahon for a touch there. Even though he's madly working on season 5 as we speak. So yay. Wrapping it up, as a matter of fact. So that happened. Still no actors. Although I've got to say, apparently there were a lot of actors promoting projects that were not exempt, that did not have special accommodations. Made me wonder, and that's why the producers are thinking they can hold out, because whereas the writers are a hardcore radical bunch of union members, the actors are such cats that need herding. And that's why you see so many appeals from the hardcore, from the great Jerry Ryan, Michelle Hurd, all of our activist actors, SAG-AFTRA members who are, beating the drum every day, especially when we had this kind of repeat of August, where the producers, the studios, the streamers floated something publicly, went public instead of keeping it in the negotiating room as a bid for public support, testing the waters, got some pushback. But right now they're exactly the same playbook as August. Right now there are no talks after a couple of days, couple of sessions, couple of days. But still, there were actors at New York Comic Con promoting projects. So whom? Nobody in Star Trek. So that is why some of the headlines coming in are still at the caveat that they're not about to shoot anytime soon, even with the writers back, because unless the AI has totally blown us out of the water, they're still going to need actors to shoot. Now, before all strike season, back in the spring, Strange New Worlds was a week away from opening cameras on shooting the first episode of season 3. They're still there. Writers are working on ahead on the next season, but they're still so even if when and obviously when the SAG-AFTRA, when the actors settle, it may be more than a week away. They may have to dust things off and get it cranked up, but they're going to be it fast enough. So saying that production would start up in 2024, or the episodes will be out to 2024, it's October. And that's going to see how close things get. Do they ramp things up? If something happens the week before Thanksgiving, do people try to get some shooting in December? Or do they just give that up and everybody just races along for January? Anyway, that didn't feel like news that there'd be shooting. And that Starfleet Academy wouldn't be doing anything until next year. That was a given too. And certainly not airing until 2025. They're in the midst of developing with the strike interrupted R&D season, the development season. It really wasn't news either at all to say that Tawny Newsome, yay, Beckett Mariner, that we saw live action on Strange New Worlds. It was a little weird to see them announce that she's in the writing room for Starfleet Academy. That was known before the strike. I think she announced it on her own socials, or someone announced it on their own socials. And it wasn't an oopsie because it didn't go away. We were talking about it at the strike, at the Star Trek theme picket back in May, when it was the writers only and the actors and crew, everybody were in support, in sympathy. But it was only the writers technically on strike then, and that was one of the open topics. In fact, I've got a great video if you go back. It's still awesome to go back. You get the vibe of the day, and you also pick up a couple of news headlines inadvertently. So that was kind of funny to see that was news now, if you somehow missed it through the summer. But yeah, the strikes have delayed everything. Nothing's going to be, but Strange New was this close to being ready to go. That's a different story than Starfleet Academy, SFA. And yes, I know Starfleet is one word, but I don't know. I don't want to say SA. That's a whole other historical thing. I don't want to be a unit that I do not want to be confused with. Let's just say SFA. We agree to agree, right? But S31, Section 31's movie, which I'm going to bet is out there, with Michelle Yeoh, and she has fought to keep that maintained even as schedules have shifted for the whole world coming back out of the strikes. Still waiting on actors to be free and clear and fair dealed to come back, obviously. There was talk about hoping the strikes would be done so that shooting could start in October. That's not going to happen. So that's even delayed past what's going to happen. Still looking for Section 31 to not just be a done and dusted movie, unless it just is an absolute bomb and a stinker. Michelle Yeoh's setup will be a movie. And then perhaps, as long as it's not a done deal, but maybe with the idea that the cast setup, the format that's set up, would continue on as a series. Now, this whole question, though, in fact, the most intriguing thing to me that Alex said at New York Comic Con was other projects, other things, the relationship, as we sit here and sturm and drang about streaming shrinking and retrenching and all of that. I think this is not news. We're all sitting around wondering if a retrenched streaming world for Paramount Plus means instead of 3 live actions and 2 animateds, we get 1 less of each one, or either what. So yay for Prodigy being on Netflix now. By the way, what will a studio, is it Studio Paramount Plus or Studio Paramount Production? Because Prodigy is part of one, but not the other. Prodigy is still a CBS TV animation project, but it's just not part of Paramount Plus. And I've already been assured that the internal consistency, it'll still be a canon show. No, what, Alex, the other showrunners are not excluding the Hagemans and Aaron and their team. They'll still be touching base to make sure all the who's using Janeway too much this month or not. Those kinds of things are still going to happen. It's going to be interesting to see what that translates to as in studio presentations. And if Netflix has their studio channel presentation, is Prodigy part of that? I'm sure it would be. That's future. We'll see how that plays out. Just does not, though. But for now, what is the post-strikes and the retrenchment world look like? So with Alex talking about other projects, don't forget that there's been a lot made, conveniently for Section 31, about Paramount Plus looking, actually getting back to their roots, about TV movies, about big screen movies we would have been thrilled to have in a theater 30 years ago because of the advances of AI and CGI and the AR wall and all the other acronyms. So maybe, is that how Legacy enters the fray as a standalone movie? Do we do Sir Patrick's plea for one more Picard adventure? Does that become the stand-up a la Section 31? I'm just guessing here, gang. I have no insights. Does Legacy, if it's ever made, start off as the other modern series have, as a pilot and we go? Or does it take the route so that Paramount Plus can tick this box of more TV movies of Trek, and we have a Section 31 movie? Oh, look, it became a series without the lead. Or we have a Picard Legacy. Oh, look, it became a series without the lead who was saying so long and sayonara. Maybe that's the way that Legacy gets launched. Or maybe Legacy starts off full bore pilot, full stop, just as Picard did, as Discovery and Strange New did. But there could be other ideas lurking out there. And if you think, even before Legacy blossomed as an idea, Alex was talking about ideas floating out there beyond the known, beyond Academy and beyond Section 31. And yeah, the Con miniseries podcast, whatever it is, technically is still out there floating. But in 7 years, you know that other ideas have come to fore, and they've done a good job of sitting on them, not letting those leak out, not letting those be whiffed around as maybes that somehow get into the zeitgeist. That's how Starfleet Academy began, as one that was out there. At the very first announcement of after Discovery was announced, and then Alex Kurtzman's overarching deal to oversee Trek for Paramount Plus. So no, the most real news out of the last weekend at New York Comic Con might have been the other formats. And remember that they're actively looking for TV movies. Does that include TV miniseries, the old school, like Harv Bennett used to do, Rich Man, Poor Man, et cetera, Woman Called Golda? Yeah. Maybe that means 2 or 3, very British UK short seasons. Hour and a half times 3, maybe. It's who cares? It's digital. The format's out the window. And that's what's so liberating right now about this. And we'll see. And hopefully everything that's built and paid for and whether it's a CGI model of a ship or it's set pieces, wardrobe, whatever. I just hope that with all those constraints lifted of the old school models that drove the way money had to be spent, that things really, I hope the imagination is liberated and that we can look around and that we can jump around and not just be stuck in a Strange New Worlds, right? 2260s or a post-Picard 25-aughts. You know what I mean? 24, I guess, 24-aughts. Can we finally do that Romulan War Founding of the Federation series and get one storyline canonized? Or even go places where we haven't been before? I fervently hope the future Star Trek is not just rebooting and reliving all these great characters. There is so much that we can get into. The novelists, STO, they've all shown the way. And yeah, you've still plenty of tapestry to revisit. I'm so excited for the notion that everything doesn't have to be a series. And who knows, if it blows up big, like guest starring Pike and Spock, it could still turn out to be a series on its own. We can let the creators and the audience kind of be a small d democracy here and figure this out. What I know is there are so many arenas that are still to tap. And every time somebody talks about recasting a young next gen cast, I'm just no. Can we go somewhere else boldly? Do we have to boldly reboot and reboost and recast? No, let's not. So sure, it would have been great to be at New York Comic Con and FOMO, but I'm going to tell you what, the FOMO I really had was half as close to me as New York City. And that was what was going on in, DFW, Dallas, Fort Worth, Dallas to be exact. And the auction, as magnificent as it was, painful to watch from afar, of the great Greg Jean's collection, which has been astounding people. Now, look, it grabbed the headlines, I know. And what grabbed the headline was that he had a filming model, an X-Wing fighter filming model from Star Wars 1977 stuck back away. It went for $3 million. The total auction went for $13.6 million. There were over 300 lots. I didn't watch it live, but I was watching some video later, and it's up. You can get to it. It's just sad, amazing. I would have loved to have been there, like going to a rocket launch. I didn't get to the Christie's auction in 2006. We had other people covering those. That was New York. This was Dallas, Heritage Auctions. I thought about flying in, getting back, just to see everything intact. Now, the good news is lots of video was shot. Lots of Star Trek folks have it on their sites. People were there live tweeting. There's lots of good documenting. So you can go through. I mean, to know that a McCoy season 1 tunic was there, $44,000. His season 3 tunic went for $38,000. And just in comparison, Uhura's season 1 dress went for $50,000. So Uhura's uniform beat D's. Michelle's beat D's from season 1. The season 3 McCoy went for $38,000. Scotty's 32, the double knit polyester, the ones that looked nicer, even though they were later third season. $32,000. Uhura's season 3 uniform, $34,000. Her earpiece, Uhura's earpiece alone, went for $26,000. Little pieces. We're talking classic era stuff. Now, Greg had collected all the way through. Here's the thing. He was a young fan. Go look at B. Joe's Concordance. He was doing fan art. He wrote the Jane Doe Starships Guide, right? Trying to assign starship names and numbers that have since been retconned by none other than Mike Okuda into the shows. And that's now become screen canon thanks to that. The starship, the anonymous numbers that are above the Commodore's, right, office from season 1. God, even the teacher from Spock's brain, McCoy's teacher helmet, was $34,000. I'm just kind of amazed. The Botany Bay original model, which still doesn't solve the mystery of who's the actual person who built it. We know what studio. I think it was Film Effects. But we don't know who the actual human being was that put the pieces together. $160,000 for the Botany Bay original model, which I've seen on some of these things have been on museum displays and tours. Greg had loaned them out. The communicator, a Hero communicator, $120,000K. The phaser, $250,000K. The tricorder, $140,000K. Wachangs, some other models too, but these were the heroes. I saw these back in the day for communicator. Prop man John Long borrowed these from Greg, and at the time we did not say names because people didn't want houses broken into. That's the way the world of the 90s and aughts worked. But we did tell all, here's how you can build your own close up. That's where I learned about the little switch to the data discs that you see. It's not just a turn bar. There was a click switch on the Hero that disgorged, that ejected one of the little data discs in the middle section of the tricorder. I know. And how the actual trigger was on the bottom, not the way Franz Joseph drew it without any help. and that the Asperon pile scrolled up and was actually a site. It was sad to know that Franz Joseph had so much wrong, even though that's where the world was, and he did us a great service by drawing. But all of that, what really shocked me, and this, I went into a time capsule here. What really got me was the original Vulcan lute, or as we called it for 30 years, the Vulcan lirette. Spock's Vulcan lute, the original from the 60s, 32,000. And I swear, if this was a time travel, if we had not had so many later series compared to the values for other things, I can't believe back in the day when Vulcan and Spock fandom is what built modern fandom, we're around because of those fan fiction writers and zine editors, yes, mostly females, that built the original conventions. Excuse me. Because of that, I'm shocked that compared to the other values, that the original Spock Vulcan lute only went for 33,000. And I was equally shocked that a set of Spock ear tips only went for 12,500. I have to say that if we could time travel back and then account for inflation, those proportionally would have been, that was really a shock. Those would have proportionally been bigger. The original Vulcan lirette. Vulcan fandom does not, Vulcan love and all things Spock do not dominate the total Star Trek fandom pie the way they used to. Anyway, it was kind of a step in time compared to the original Universal Translator from Arena and Menagerie. The companion show, Metamorphosis Menagerie. The original UT, Universal Translator from Metamorphosis, it went for 49,000, and it's a working. It's at least got the wire. The UT went for 49, and Spock's lute went for 32. Anyway, guys, we can get into the weeds of this. I was just flipping through, looking at values and seeing what was a hot seller, what was a hot item. Obviously, what do they call them? The cubactahedrons. Anyway, the smashed up, the Kelvin's, some water evaporation, the reducing everybody into little dodecahedrons. One of those went for 37,000. McCoy's season 3 tunic was 38. Well, one of those little, it was just funny. A desktop, a little sky blue desktop, not the rocker switches, just a little desktop comm unit, went for 13,000, 5 times the original opening bid. Anyway, the Shatner field jacket from Star Trek II is 120,000. Okay. The Star Trek II heavy tricorder amazed me. I did not know that was a thing. The description was hollow cast resin. Years ago for Fact Files, I tracked the original down at Good Old Modern Props, which has since closed, its collection dispersed. I thought that was the one they used, rented it, and took it back. Turns out they cast off of it and returned the rental and fixed up the cast piece to the shape that we saw, although it wasn't far from the rental piece that Modern Props had. I didn't know that they had cast a piece separate. So yeah, Greg's collection went all the way, and he had plenty of classic sci-fi. I'm sure he did as a younger kid. He worked in the industry. And I will say that working with all the glues and cements and paint fumes, I did an homage, a memorial piece, if you go back. Trekland Tuesdays Live 264, early July a year ago, 2022. He had just passed. I did a whole show about Greg at the time. And working in the industry, sometimes he just cast a second if he was working on it. But as a kid and working with people, before collecting was such a thing, some of the really precious 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s non-Trek items he had. Forget the X-Wing fighter. Just a huge collection. But no, it was never, the tragedy of all of this was he was a collector and he was busy and he worked in the industry and it was stuff would go in the garage. It's not like Greg had a house full, a couple of houses worth of seeing where he could have friends come over and show things. It wasn't like the Acker mansion that Forey Ackerman had, where he had his preciousness all on display. No, a lot of it was, and sadly, a lot of it, there's a mentality that people hid their stuff because they would rather show it to friends than have it on display and have the word get out. That was the mentality of the time. And that still happens. If you're wealthy and a recluse, you still might put the Enterprise A filming model in your living room and only show it to your friends. There's that, by the time you're on this level and you're paying these sums for items and multiple items, that's your right. What's sad is that as amazing as watching these values go by, these items go by, knowing they'd all been in one place, it's amazing to see the prices. It's interesting to see how fandom today values different pieces in relation to each other. But most of all, it was sad to know that it was the Greg Jean collection, but it had never been viewable until now, until the last few weeks in Dallas. And knowing that now everything is going to disperse to different ends of the earth. Even if one buyer, one collector might have picked up 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 12 pieces. And at some point might have their mini Greg Jean collection out there. But again, for one brief shining moment of a few weeks, and yes, many, many folks going to make sure and record it on video and save it for posterity. Still, though, not to have gone and seen all that live in the flesh at the one time it would be on display, out of the garages, out in public, before it goes to the four corners of the world. A little FOMO, gang. A little FOMO. Yeah. That I didn't go do my own shooting, do my own video, do some lives from there. But nope, we had things to do here. So it's all recorded. It's all saved. We'll have it for just like we have the Christie's records. We have all that gallery. Not so much video then, but we have the gallery. And watching what got the headlines. I think after the X-Wing fighter, 3 million, what got the most headline was, the Shatner hairpiece. Which the auctioneers, some of these items auctioneers could not believe. It's fun to watch their video. Was valued, starting bid was 1,000. It went for 11,000. A 1960s era Shatner headpiece that to this day, some people are completely unaware of. It's funny. It's funny. If you ever have the chance to listen to Andy Richardson, to Andrea Kindred, who was working at the lot, right? Gene Kuhn's executive assistant. And her daughter, listen to her talk about the story. Her daughter came screaming into her office when her daughter was young. It's really funny. And it ties into the auction item I was just referring. Oh, gang. Oh, I didn't mention the Galileo 7 miniature, 180,000. Just amazing. So yes, the whole piece, slightly over 300 pieces, Star Trek and not, although fully half of the auction was Star Trek, if not more. 13.6 million from things that had been sitting in Greg's garages. So it's all the money, the proceeds, the profit is all going to his family to help with their needs, medical things. I wish we'd had Greg longer than his 70-some years. But I called him Star Trek's gentle art giant. He was so quiet. And the digital revolution left him behind a little bit, although he was still working up until the end. He was just amazing to talk to. I've got a couple of interviews with him. I should get those out. Not camera, audio. But for now, if you're curious to hear more about Greg, go back and just Google Trekland Greg Jean, and you'll find it. It's number 264 from July 2022. But yes, this weekend, doubly so, was a little bit of, I always get a little bit of FOMO about the New York fans, but then I always know they're envious of everybody in LA. So, and the events that happen here and the people that are here. So I get it. No, I was really thinking of that heritage auction in Dallas this weekend. And again, as I did, as you can, the record is there. It's pretty amazing. It is pretty amazing. Glossy, beautiful catalogs too. The photography that was taken for this auction hopefully will satisfy a lot of research needs for years to come. All right. I don't know what you did this weekend or what you were thinking about, but maybe you were watching the news from New York. Maybe you were watching the news from Dallas, or your attention was elsewhere. But whatever you were doing, again, maybe you were thinking about getting yourself to LA for a Trekland trek. That would be awesome. What I also hope you will put on your calendar, and you don't have to leave your room, is finally announcing this. Our 8th anniversary open house for Portal 47, open to the public, is going to be Wednesday, November 8th at 7 p.m. Stay tuned, save the date, and I'll be announcing our special guest here in the next few days. All righty? So you want to make sure and do that. Now, we'll have giveaways. If you're registered, it's free to the public. We open the doors of the portal for everybody once a year. Who did we have? We had Ira last year. Mike McMahon before that. And you know what? People are popping up all over. The idea of the portal is to bring folks in, the creative behind the scenes folks who rarely can share screen time with the actors. There's so much we don't know across all the eras. That's what Portal 47 is all about. It's your backstage pass for all those who are Star Trek fans and have no idea how much Star Trek they still have no idea about. It is like a mini con all year long with all the aspects. The guest night is just the apex of the monthly package. And once a year, to mark the anniversary, our 8th anniversary. Wow. Yeah. Going to be announcing the guests soon, but Wednesday, November 8th, 7 p.m. Pacific. That means we'll start Eastern time. We will have giveaways. I've loaded up with DVDs and books recently, so you'll register. I don't have the machinery set up. I want you to save the date. This time next week, we will be telling you where to go to register and be there live. All right? But I also got to say thank you, of course, to our Patreon folk. Yes, we have a Patreon here at Trekland, our TTL Club. Thank you so much, Diana Hopkins, Robin Wilson, Lawrence Todd, Anne-Marie Siegel, Justin Porteous, Glinda Bruton, Chris Jiggins, Pranakasha Productions, Comedy Forecast, and Andrew Jasimski, and our live wires who get a shout out and access to prior Portal 47 backstage interviews from the earlier years. That would be Robert McLean, Byron Bailey, J.R. Poole, Albjörn Gunjohnson, Alan Ho Hensey, Dave Gregory, Tobias Rex, Donna S. Runyon, and Casey Shafsky. Love it. Thank you all so much for that support. If you are interested, it's those simple amounts. I keep it simple, $5 and $10. It's patreon.com/TreklandLive. Check it out, would you please? Thank you for that support. We're gradually getting more expansive here on the Trekland way of doing things. Yes, the Trek Files is another way we reach out to Roddenberry podcast. We are on hiatus. We'll be for a couple of weeks more, but 10 seasons, 24 episodes apiece of our 20-minute episodes, some longer, some shorter, are there at podcast.roddenberry.com with all the other Roddenberry podcasts, including the new Genealogy. Check that one out, looking at all of Gene's projects, or his non-Trek projects, to see where the spirit of Star Trek lives in them. And yes, it's about a lot more than the Lieutenant and Have Gun Will Travel. Trek Files is where you can get, the audio anywhere, but Trek Files is where we have the documents of the week, because when we say Trek Files, we mean Trek Files. And socially, check me out at Larry Nemechek on X, Twitter, whatever the hell they're calling it this week. Larry Nemechek's Trekland on YouTube right now. Make sure you subscribe, ring the bell for the alerts, do all the things, all right? You want to get me on Instagram too. Same thing, Larry's Trekland. And Facebook too. Portal47.net. You're going to be hearing a lot more. We've been kind of quiet on pushing the old portal this year. A lot of other projects taking the time, but it's open house season finally in the fall. You're going to be hearing a lot more about that. We've got our TeePublic store too, if you want. Now, if you're watching this later on YouTube only, I still want you to subscribe, right? Ring the bell, do all the things. But you're catching us later. It would be great if you could watch us live, as we do every Tuesday, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, and yes, even 9 p.m. UK time, 10 p.m. Central Europe. Captain, I have not calculated the odds nor the time for Australia, but it's the next morning. And we have Australians. The cool thing about that time frame is we have folks from all over the world join us live for the chat. If you're watching later, please leave a comment. Please pop off. I would love for you to. If you're live, though, you do get the live commentary, even before we edit down for the weekly edit, all right? All right, that's going to do it for right now. If you're with me live, you know to hang on, though. I'm going to take a real quick minute. We're going to actually look at some lower decks parent analytics numbers, and then I'll dive into the chat full bore. Okay, guys? Yes, indeedy. Wow, we've got a full blown. And once again, a reminder that to stay healthy, do all the things, right? I could show you my Band-Aids. I got my COVID shot and my flu shot. I'm going to go back in a couple weeks and get a couple others that I let go for ages. I just think it's, I've got a little bit of a sore arm here, but no biggie. Just do all the things. Take care of yourself as we head into winter sickness season, okay? Stay woke. Do all the things. It's coming thick and fast. These are not subtle times. Now, instead of just domestic abuse of our information airways, we're going to be dealing with it on a global basis too. So do what I always say. Check the sources when something seems too insane. It's going to be even thicker now than usual. What I always say. All of that means, please, trek well, everybody. All right, gang. I'm just going to be real quick about this. I have not actually physically shared and looked at the parent analytics because it's gotten so, it's come so far. The last few months, they've sold out their recent numbers. Parent Analytics is the company out of New Jersey that tries to measure. Even though Nielsen's is trying to do it now, they're still not measuring everybody. They made headlines talking about Star Trek, Picard, and Strange New Worlds at times creeping into their digital top 10. That's awesome. A lot of people have a fault with their metric, with their model. A lot of people have fault with Parent Analytics too. We've just been following them since 2017. They tried to get a handle on this. Recently, you don't go to their site to get the recent numbers. They're packaging things different. They're trying to monetize this whole average demand expression metric. I don't blame them. They've sold out to TV Geek to have their latest numbers there. So you go over to TV Geek. And when you go there, you get it on the week-to-week ratings for the U.S. anyway. And they measure countries around the world, does Parrot, with the streaming factor in. They're showing that Star Trek Lower Decks is at 23 times the average demand expression of an average show, with 600, 700 shows being looked at. That still puts them in the, they're still outstanding. Go away. Boom. They are ranking. Their trend is up 2.9%. Yay. I mean, we're heading into the stretch here. Now, the one that airs this week, the post AG, is just called Caves, and I can't wait for you to see it. The Second Opinion. Have you been following Second Opinion? Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. You'll see it. Second Opinion is out. They're holding back on the last two. I meant to say this during the New York discussion. They've held out. They sent a screener for the first 8. There's something truly spectacular. Mike teased about this at New York Comic Con. Apparently, maybe a legacy character that we haven't seen yet to date. We'll see. Could it be a hologram of Kirk or Spock through some miraculous whatever? I don't know. We'll see. They have a hologram of McCoy with D. I will just bawl my eyes out. Anyway. Or even if they get Kurt in to do it, that'd be fine too. No, Lower Deck, the animated shows on the Parrots turn up much lower than the live actions do. So this isn't too disappointing. They're hanging in there. Look, they're still hanging in as an outstanding show, which is in the upper 2.7%, which is awesome. They're peaking out. The average demand is at 23. They're peaking out at 24 times the demand for an average show out of these 600, 700, 800 shows, whatever it is now they're measuring. So that's cool. The trend goes up and down, and these latest numbers are 5 days old. So the old days when we would come in and watch every week's week number that was just 2 or 3 days old, that was one thing. From the early days of Discovery onward, and when they would be in the top 10, and when there was there's a lot less competition on streaming, but there was no competition, and there was a lot fewer streaming shows. We've come a long way since those days. I've altered the way. I'm still wanting to touch base, even if I have to go to TV Geek's license numbers to do it. You can still go to paranalytics.com. I never got anything special from them, aside from a few press releases. You can still follow along on their breakouts and special subject matters, but just touching base here and thinking Nielsen's digitals are going to be nowhere near having either animated show for right now. That's still very, very healthy. And if you've been watching Lower Decks this season, and why the hell not, if not, we are creeping up on the Romulan supernova. The synth attack are only 4 and 5 years away or so. It's amazing. And of course you should be watching. All right. Let's backtrack. And once more, reminder, if you want to super chat me, throw some coinage our way, some silver. It's much appreciated now that we're all monetized in super chat eyes on YouTube. Can't do it on Facebook. It's a YouTube thing, just so you're clear. Not a Twitch or a Facebook thing at all. Let's see who's got questions. Ernesto. Hey, Ernesto. Are you a newbie for us here? I'm trying to remember. If it is, it's been months and months and months, maybe. But welcome to Tuesdays, and glad to have you aboard, NYC. Were you like Googling hashtags for NYC and came up with this title? Okay, well, it did the trick then. Yay! Did you get, as Dave is asking here, freshman NYC? See? Okay. Well, see, if I'm having FOMO from all the way across the country, you're right there in town in the metro. They don't call it, what do they call, what's New York City's little term for the tri-state area? There we go. That's its thing. Dallas-Fort Worth is the Metroplex. Yeah. Oklahoma City was just the metro. LA, we just say SoCal. Let's say, hello, Joel. Wait, Joel, is this a new Joel? That's a dude. Okay, it's a new handle. Wait, is this aimed at me? We talked in Chicago last year. Awesome. So slap me around a little bit for not remembering, if that's who you mean. Yeah. Okay, looking at everybody. Hi everybody. I'm seeing Rose. Hi Rose. Hi May. Everybody. Hey Steven, Textrek. Yes. And Alta's here from Germany. Aha, Zahir, an actual question. Yes, Zahir. If you wore a 49er shirt to your Trekland trek when the Rams are playing, can you guarantee my safety? I would totally guarantee your safety. Now, if it was a 49ers Dallas game, no. The Rams are my safely adopted. I'm curious. The hysterical thing is the Chargers are LA now, not San Diego. The Chargers will always be said. Gang, the Cardinals will always be St. Louis to me, but that's how old I am. And Seattle and Tampa Bay will always be expansion teams. It's locked in time. So you want to wear your 49ers shirt to a Star Trek Trekland tour? You go right ahead, Bucky. It's fine with me. Just get yourself down here, Zahir. That's all we need to say. Let me see here. Well, Melanie, they haven't said when Prodigy. It'll be sometime next year. Wait, no, later this year, later in 2023. We laugh about that on the European side. The Europeans were told forever when Paramount Plus, which stole the Star Treks from the existing Prime and Netflix channels, including the Discovery that was about to air 3 days before the new season was about to start. What was that, season 3? They yanked it away and caused a huge firestorm. Not the smartest corporate PR move, without telling half the corporation. So later in the year became a joke phrase, but that's the word on Prodigy. With the Unseen season 2 to come next year, they're just wrapping it up. They've been wrapping it up for ages. Jim, this would be a very large campground to join you. Lots of folks would love to see that. Yes. Beating the Simpsons record, Ernesto, that might take some doing. Yeah. Hey, Brad. Fragrance-free Vaseline. Have you been with Tuesday? I think you've been on Tuesdays before, right? Maybe. Okay, but good to see you again. We are well. We're all here, and thanks for joining in today. Sure. And people answering you back. Yeah. Jim jumping in there. Thank you for getting in. Now, what, Christoph? The German YouTube channel for Paramount Plus released a SpongeBob promo today titled Consequences of Costiveness. I left a comment about costiveness and the home of Star Trek and Prodigy. Yeah, they need to. It's going to be interesting to see if P Plus still keeps trying to say the home of Star Trek. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, late 2014, for later than normal. They normally had that late summer running window or midsummer running window. Yes. All right. Okay, everybody getting to say their howdies. Yes, yes, yes. Now, there was a little pushback. Mike put out a warning about making sure everybody watched and got the numbers up for a season 6, and then came back and said he didn't mean to sound so paranoid because he's always paranoid, and he didn't mean anything special. So there we go. Okay, is that a thing? Yay. Looking for the questions. Oh. Hey, Analysis. Are you the only one who would love to see a Star Trek project called Star Trek Rejects? Do you mean as a series, or do you mean as a documentary about rejected patients, or do you mean Star Trek Rejects as in people who washed out of the academy? Is that what you mean? So it would be like Tom Paris and Ensign Rowe or whatever. What time period would that be? Are you thinking Star Trek Rejected Pitches? It'd be a documentary, right? How would you do that? I don't know. Funny idea, though. Hello, Adam. Maybe it's been a while since you joined us. Okay. So, and we talked about this on European Portal Roundtable. The Europeans, the German market, and the UK can buy the Prodigy Blu-rays all together in one box. Maybe that's cost analysis, cost efficiencies, I'm going to say. Rose, the tentative time I gave you is Wednesday, November 7th, 7 p.m. Of course, I know that's the time I have to do a nod to the Americans, so it makes it 2 and 3 in the morning for the Europeans. So sorry about that. Or even 3 and 4. Okay, we got everybody taken care of. Yeah, Harv Bennett won an Emmy. Harv Bennett did the original miniseries. When a miniseries was a revolutionary thing, mini movies with high production values. It brought North and South and Jonathan Frakes to us in a big way. Oh, analysis. A Star Trek themed reality show? Yeah. How would you structure it? What would be the game or the format? I'm sure Paramount Plus, all of Paramount would just love having a Star Trek themed reality show invade the zeitgeist, as long as it was not corny and did not completely betray the basic core. If you could have fun with Star Trek the way Lower Decks loves Star Trek in a snarky way, only have a show love Star Trek in a reality show way without being an embarrassment. That's what I think I would be for. Hey, Mona. Glad you could be with us. I haven't seen our Latin American folks or our Africans chiming in today, or our Portuguese contingent. We'll see. Okay. I love everybody's having their conversation. Love everybody's okay. Okay. Up here's Sean creeping in with his trivia. Okie dokie. Oh, I didn't go check the TNG stuff so closely. But there you go. And I bet the Beverly uniform went for far more than it would have 10 years ago too. I mean, I'm not talking about the inflation rate. Obviously, everything would go for more than it did 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. Yes, I was the same way. It started at 10 or 20 and was leaping 5,000 at a time. 70, 75, 80, 85, 90, 95. And then finally slowed down at 130, 140. I think they were all kind of gasping there at the Heritage Auction folks. It was. Don't feel so bad building your own, Dave. Yeah. Yeah, I was shocked that in light of everything else, when the communicator went for 120,000, that the Vulcan loot only went for 32,000. That just blows them away. The one that Nimoy touched and filmed with in 1966. I was just kind of shocked that the Vulcan pieces and the Spock related, Nimoy especially, seemed to be undervalued. It just seemed to me as a barometer in where we are with so much going on in Trek world that I obviously know it's not all about the Vulcans anymore, but still, in the sentimentality that in the TOS attraction of bidders and attention that this auction drew, I'm still shocked. Still shocked. Hey, analysis. I have not heard this. I know several people have done plays and screenplays and had readings. Was this news? It just broke today. I'll have to look at this and see. Well, that's the thing. Trying to make just like coming up with rules to a 3D, a tri-dimensional chessboard. Not a comedy, a group of Starfleet Academy or Starfleet rejects people you can't get in saving the face. Yeah, that's what I thought. There you go. Okay. I'm trying to get on down through. I'm looking for actual questions, kids. Actual questions. Hey, Melanie, I was here for 10 years. I could have got to the Acker Mansion, and I never bored. There was so much Trek happening in the 90s. We were so busy. I could just kick myself for not getting over to the Acker Mansion before he passed, and then before the collection was, dispersed. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Christoph. Hey, you did get in. Awesome. You went to the Acker Mansion, or you got to the Greg Jean auction setup? Either way, that's amazing. I mean, I have it on people that these days that I was at the Vegas experience. I mean, I worked on it to set it up, to start it off. But even just going like once a year, especially the con years, and so many folks don't. I don't. We're all just really blessed to have our experiences, however and wherever we are. Hey, Sean. Yeah, I think I saw. Yes, you went to see it live. Yeah, and it's amazing. But then when you think you'll never see all of that in one place again, you'd never be able to see it all out like that ever until then. It's a once in its lifetime. It won't even exist as an entity anymore, except it's something on paper. Yes. It was an awesome. I have the Christie's auction book, but I didn't get one of these. Maybe I should. Maybe I'll come into it at some point. Now, what are you saying, Analysis? You don't envy either coast Star Trek fans because they don't always get the best news. They still have no idea about. I'm looking for your. They still have no idea about FOMO. But you know what? Analysis, it's fine. Everybody comes to Star Trek where they are. And we can all, that's why I do so much trying to give the context. We're about to record some new Trek files. And we're going to dive into some awesome documents and people to talk about them and really make sure to preserve the first couple of generations of fandom. There's so much that is exactly the same and so much that is just different. More about the human element, more about not so much about the human element, but more about the culture and the technology we were living at the time. And what Star Trek fans had to do, I talk about. Star Trek fandom was the internet on paper and stamps. When there was no internet, Star Trek fueled the demand for contact and information before the internet. And they did it, by God. They forced it to happen. Took the existing stone knives and bearskins culture and made it happen. Invented the Well Committee. The Well Committee was the internet with paper and stamps. That was a quote from 15 years ago of mine. I should hashtag trademark that. Yes, Rose, we'll get the word out to everybody really quick as soon as I have the logistics in place for signing up. Well, hey, Susan, there's a lot of things I would be interested to know who got them. But there's confidentiality. Some people like to know. Some people keep it a secret. Again, some people just don't want there to be a mark. They don't want a target on the back of their collection and get broke into. It's as simple as that. And it's still that way. Thanks for sharing this. Peter Pringle and his Vulcan Heart videos. Yep. Let's see. Actual question. Christoph, the hairpiece looking like a tribble was actually said in the auction. Not the auctioneer, but somebody, one of his staff adjacent said, how do you know it's not really a tribble? Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, Dave. I wonder why that is. Just just my thrilling headline just drew them in. Just such a hook. Such a hook. Thank you, analysis. You need like check the sources 2 and 3 times, including when a lot of well-meaning actual sources, things are happening so thick and fast. It happens all the time, but sometimes there's malicious intent that's buried and unintentionally passed along and has to be walked back, has to be retracted, including from government officials, including from our president a couple of times. So part of it is human nature, even when it's not nefarious and intentional propaganda, basically. Hey, Sean. Why is Kurtzman so persistent with the Academy and Section 32? I know of no fan who wants this. Well, there may be contracts signed. There may be investments. It's like, why did Paramount not pull the plug on the motion picture when the cost overruns through the God Thing and Phase 2 and Planet of the Titans? When all that, it's like you got to finally do the thing that makes the investment back. And who knows, you might love it. What I'm saying is, if you're surrounded by not just people, but also boards and, people online, accounts, if you're in the bubble of the yay, legacy all the way, let's do it tomorrow. And that's a thing. And I don't blame them. I want legacy tomorrow. I know a lot of people who I want to have jobs making Star Trek tomorrow, in the legacy way, in that mold. But I know fans who want Academy and Section 31. I know tons of fans who want them. It's just going to be a thing. And remember, Section 31 stood aside already once for Strange New Worlds to be made first. Now, you might say, well, that's just indicative of, like, why do we keep it? Commitments made, the chance to have Michelle Yeoh penetrate Star Trek to a whole new audience that doesn't watch it. She's the hook that gets people in. Just the same way Scott Bakula was the way that brought the huge Quantum Leap audience into no, I'm kidding. But mainstream audience, sure. So that's that. It could be something as simple as contractual with penalties. Right. What is going on with Paramount not saving Star Trek, Netflix saving Star Trek? One show done as a tax write-off that they thought was the weak link for taxes, and people new to the franchise not realizing what they had done. Same thing as when, after the Viacom divorce and CBS Interactive shut down StarTrek.com, not realizing it was a marketing device for a franchise that was not dead and canceled, but was very much alive. Especially then, especially with no active series on. That's when they needed it the most, because that also allowed the rise. That's what allowed the rise of Trek movie to fill that vacuum. Think so, huh? Think so, analysis? Okay, we'll see. You think that was what the very short Trek setup was all about? All righty. Well, here you go, Christoph. You know people that are looking forward to the Academy show. Right. Okay. Oh, excuse me, guys. Not an editorial comment. Here's another dissenting view there. Fan base very interested in Academy. And the chance to attack. As long as the Academy was not our old 90s fear that it was going to be Starfleet 90210. If it wasn't going to be all about teenage angsty. And Kurtzman saying, look, Tawny is on the staff. It's going to be a funny show. Our time's funny. That was a breath of fresh air. That was a huge reassurance to a lot of people. Just the way they have communicated this all along. has been helpful and reassuring that it was not going to be a Aaron Spelling pot boiler, with Tori Spelling involved. Okay. Give me an AI that immediately tells me who's been on before and how long ago. Yeah, it's just I'm trying to make conversation, but I'm thrilled to see new names, although sometimes it's been a while, right? Let me see here. Hey, Alan, I'll tell you, I had a spurt of activity, slowly working on edits. Okay, it's going to be done. We need an end game, and it's going to get done. Oh, okay. Well, then I know we've talked, Ernesto, or I've seen you then. You heard of the sport of hurling? Can I interest you in a trip to Iceland? That's hurling as opposed to curling? Okay. Let's see. There you go. Thanks for sharing the link. Okay. Hi, Rose. Yes, the Rams is a common name for teams in the U.S. Aside from the L.A. Rams, that were St. Louis Rams, and now they're back to being L.A. Rams again. The Rams are what Colorado State University's team's mascot is the Rams, and I'm sure tons of high schools, and probably more than one college, if I'm thinking right. Sean, can I ask? Yes, you may. Ever consider recommending about Desilu being bought out by Paramount? As I understand, they just wanted the land, but God, I Love Lucy, Mission Impossible, Star Trek for free. Well, that was part of the deal. What Paramount movie theater, it was at a time the first big diversification, and the movie studios, having fought TV, decided to, if you can't beat them, join them. So all the big studios, Warner, you can go back to the little studios. Remember the Screen Gems and 5 Star and all of those? Those were all eventually bought up by studios. And they may have been rebranded as Universal TV, Warner's Television, and Paramount TV. But Paramount jump-started its own TV division by buying Desilu. And yes, that's how they wound up with Mission Impossible and Mannix and Lucy and Star Trek. And of all of those, the least respect was paid to Star Trek because that was the loser that was losing money every week. And that's at the point when they were ready to sell Star Trek everything, the assets, to Gene. And I mentioned it's at least 500,000, maybe less, 350,000 something, which lasted all of 6 months until they started to see the returns come in from syndicating it daily to local stations. And when they realized the cash cow that was going to be, they said, that's okay, we'll take it back. So that thing that Gene and Bob Justman and Herb Solo, all of them had to deal with the browbeating, cheap. They got Ralph Sinensky fired as director, but that Douglas Kramer, who was the executive in charge of production of Paramount, trying to prove the point that Paramount TV wasn't going to put... All of that crap went out the window in a year, but they'd already been canceled. So, no one ever makes... no mistakes. Because they were wanting more than just the land. They were wanting to jumpstart a TV division. And Desilu, it was right there, their next door neighbor. Just tear down the wall, boom, we've got all that facility, all that physical plant. Thank you, Christoph, for remembering what was going on. The later in the year was a whole unrolling, driving everybody crazy. Mm-hmm. Well, Sean, be careful what you wish for. You may get it. That would be hysterical. And what happened to Nick Locarno? Wouldn't that be funny? Mona, I would recommend the first 2 very short treks for the Star Trek. In case you didn't see it, they actually did a very short treks with an interview of I'm blanking on his name. Castro? No. The creator who pitched Very Short Treks. So there you go. Helen, you've got, yes, you're set yourself up. Okay, you're ready to go with Prodigy. They won't screw you around anymore. Yes, let's see. Hey, Frank, good to see you, man. Speaking of our Trekland Treks veterans and Portal 47ers, just curious if you ever reached Star Trek overload in your life. I've been on a little bit of a hiatus to clear your memory banks. Well, Frank, at times, yes, when there's been a crush of things, if I had deadlines, like SummerCon season this year when they had 3 lower decks in a row in a week, felt like it. In 8 days, there were 3 lower decks to deal with. For so much of my life, things were, the 90s were that way. When Voyager and DS9 were overlapping, it was pretty thick. And then, be careful what you wish for, because then you get it. You got nothing. So averaging it out between the times when there was nothing, very fallow times, and the times when there was lots. Not really, but it is healthy to have other interests. So if you're in LA, you want to join us for Will's birthday party. Will would be 144. Come out to the ranch on Saturday, November 4th. Yes, but I understand. I totally get you. Sean, I tried to watch Red Dwarf. I've seen bits of it. And I've never gotten into the swing of it. So I know it was huge. I know, the holographics and Danny Jewel Jones, the guy who was Cat or whatever, who was on Death in Paradise. I know he has a whole fan base bit from that. But I'm still kind of the hologram character there was before the Doctor. Yeah. Wow. Yes, he did. Time Tracks was his last series when he was getting to retirement. Yes. Let me see. Ellen, your life is turning into a Star Trek reality show. I know, dear. Let's see. Looking for questions. Especially super chat questions, y'all. Super chat. Yeah, Christoph, occasionally somebody will say actual question, : I've gotten good where I can kind of bypass the talk about what's happening in the GSA or what the sidebar topic of conversation is. Hey, Moo Young. Yes, the plasma candle is coming to STO as a character. Mm-hmm. Acker Museum. Well, his house was called the Acker Mansion. I remember that too. Yeah. What was the highest price piece of Star Trek? I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah, it was the Galileo 7 miniature, apparently, 180. And the Botany Bay was 160, 100,000, 160,000, 180,000, or 60,000. I could have missed something, though. I didn't see what the Picard and Beverly uniform. And then the tricorder of the Phaser 2 Hero working was 150. Then the tricorder was 140. The communicator 120. And the Shatner field jacket was 120,000. So who'd break into someone's house to steal a hairpiece? It's a strange world. It's a crazy world, Grandpa. That's a Kalinkov line from You Can't Take It With You. There you go. Watch it at least once to see it. You would watch. This is true, Moo. People said, who's going to watch a funny cartoon show? Yep, exactly. Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Analysis. Autistic characters, neurodivergent disorders, disabilities, atypicals. What's that term? Sorry. Hey, Trek reviewer, is this your first time with us on Tuesday, or at least with that handle? Do not want to see Star Trek Saved by the Bell 90210. Exactly. Yeah, the 90210 was. I think more people would want to see Star Trek Saved by. Some people would say that that's what Lower Decks is. It's Star Trek Saved by the Bell. Let's see. Okay. Good point, Dave. Good talk. Well, Paramount also got the Andy Griffith Show, maybe RFD. I think we were talking more in terms of what could be movie fodder. Not so much the Lucy Show, but yeah. Oh, Jan. My cat that was born March 25th, 2000 was the late, great Schneider, our dog cat, named the day of your wedding when he was born with his litter mates. Hi, Jan. Good to see you. Janet Schneider, everybody, one of the early assistant script coordinators on Star Trek Next Generation, the second, I believe. Absolutely. Next Generation, no, not Voyager Pilot a little. No, not Voyager Pilot. Yes, absolutely. Janet's predecessor. How you doing? Hope everything's good with you. By the time I get back around to this, I hope you're still watching. You'd rather have more neurodivergent characters than Ralph Wiggum Simpsons. There you go. Well, they got it to own it. No one's made I Love Lucy into a. I'm not sure who owns Lucy, because Lucy and Desi did such a great trick with owning the reruns. I have to research that. Let's see. I'm going to do a little more caffeine here if I can. There is that, Melanie. There is that. And Zelensky's probably almost half of Putin's age. Hey, Frank, was the large D, the most expensive prop for Star Trek ever? Might have been. Hey, Trek reviewer, I remember it happening. I remember feeling like it was just a week. I felt a little sorry for Ernest Borgnine at that point, but I remember just thinking it was a thing trying to cash in on the sci-fi craze. Didn't last long, right? It was the jacket, with or without it. He wasn't wearing the jacket by the time they were back on board during the battle. It was only while they were running around the Genesis cave, right? Oh no, what did I wonder what I said. Have you been with us before? Maybe. What are you saying here? What is the coolest piece for your Star Trek collection? Oh. Because I don't keep a lot just for space, and I was getting rid of a lot of things. I didn't hang on to a lot of physical stuff just because it took up so much space. I don't know. I have an original series microtape. You know, the plywood 3.5-inch floppies. I have one. That's my one original series thing. Could the SAG-AFTRA strike go on forever? Anything's possible, and we just never have filmed entertainment with live actors again. Yeah. And the actors working on Prodigy and Lower Decks aren't under SAG contracts. Thank you, the Animation Guild. Well, see, this is the thing, Jana. Oh, that's right, on DS9. Well, I know I have this written down. I'm trying to think. You doubled up on DS9 because eventually they did get 2, right? Wallace and Tolls. By the time they hired Daryl, there was a separate on DS9, but originally, and you filled in, but originally there was just, you did both shows in the beginning. Oh, okay. Yeah, there were 300 scripts of various ages and stages, but they were all originals, not reprints, and written on notes and things. 200,000. That was a lot of paper, priceless paper. Probably a lot of surprises once somebody starts going through some of that too. That may be what the bidder was hoping for. Anyway, Jana, I'm glad you popped by. When Janet was hired, they were calling her the assistant script coordinator. So I just assumed they'd changed the title by the time you were there. Yes, you should. I need to have you back on Portal again and do something on Trek Files too. It's always nice when a Trek veteran can jump in. I know she didn't think of herself that way, but she is. Jana Schneider, everybody. Jana Schneider, everyone. Let's see. Hey. Well, Moo, you're welcome. Mona, I did not know that, but it does not surprise me. I wonder if they have some kind of a low-key licensing deal with Paramount, with Viacom. It used to be Viacom Consumer Products. Darn typos. It's fine. It's okay, Jana. That's why we only get call sheets for joining Portal 47. There you go. Thank you for the credits list. Thank you for the IMDb here, Rose. Thank you for Red Dwarf. Okay. Let's see what we can do here. Well, Ernest Borgnine, Marty, that he won his Oscar for. I think he won his Oscar for. Trying to think, but I mean, then he in dramatic roles, and he's in what? Not Towering, Poseidon Adventure. But McHale's Navy, he was McHale, and okay, fine. Yeah, tiny series. Future Cop, 8 episodes. Yeah, I knew it didn't happen. Okay, I think we're at the end of the chat, guys. I think by the time we're talking about Chrome crashing, there we go. And absolutely, I'm joining in there. Yay, Doralto. Totally, yes. Yeah, Jana, you should jump in more often. Thank you for letting me know I wasn't crazy. Everybody, thanks. It's been another great Tuesday. Again, want to have you, anybody who's transferring through, who's think you're going to be transiting through LA, just remember that a Trekland Treks is a lot of fun. You can bring, there's price break. Where are we? There we are. TreklandTreks.com. Check it out. Your own custom away mission. I make sure you have a good time. We plan it out ahead of time. I'll throw my local knowledge in. Another big shout out to all of our Trekland folks. Hey, I love you, Christoph, but how about we do this instead? Thanks to you all, folks. We're coming to the end of the month. They take this out at the end of the month. So if you want to jump in this month before I redo the sign, and I need to, we're there. Again, it's patreon.com/TreklandLive, $5 and $10. Love to have you do that. The Trek Files is on hiatus, but give the back 10 seasons a look if you can. Thanks very much. And what is happening is the 8th anniversary Portal 47 open house, free to everybody. Lots of giveaways. We'll even have a mini Ask Dr. Trek roundtable to kick things off before our guest, who will be announced shortly, is joining us Wednesday, November 8th, 7 p.m. Pacific. All right. That's going to do it. Of course, I'm Larry Nemechek on X, Twitter, whatever we're calling it. I still cannot not only call it Twitter. I can't only call it X. Larry Nemechek's Trekland. Please like and subscribe right now on Facebook and Instagram too. And Portal 47, check it out now. It is like a mini con all year long. No need for the post-con blues when you've got the Portales community and everything we're sharing through the month. That's going to do it for another Tuesday, gang. Thank you all so much. I know everybody gets FOMO at times, and some of you may want to say, oh, Larry, shut up. You're in LA. But I really, really do feel, especially losing out on seeing Greg's collection. And having been, not a lot, but having been over to Greg's shop back in the day and visited over there, I mean like the 90s. It was sad to lose him. I felt too soon, but amazing. I always hear about the stuff that was in, you should go over to Greg's, have him taken back and show you the, I heard he's got a, I heard he's got an X-Wing, but so much stuff. It'll all find good homes. It's a shame that it couldn't have been in a museum intact where the public could see it more than just for an auction showing. But there you go. I was reminded, and I should have said this earlier, I was reminded of Debbie Reynolds, the late, great Debbie Reynolds, movie star, as an 18-year-old, right? Singing in the rain. Her whole story, Debbie Reynolds, okay? Carrie Fisher's mother. You can see the documentary about the two of them in her declining days. She did the same thing Greg did, only with Hollywood musicals and amazing stuff. She accumulated with the idea to open the Debbie Reynolds Hollywood Museum. She tried several times, talked to people in Las Vegas about it, came close, just never happened. Eventually, she was past going, having to handle it, and nobody else in the family wanted to deal with it. And her huge collection, which only was seen in public in bits and pieces, finally, her dream had to be sold off. And that's all like what Greg's idea here is too. So it's amazing that doesn't turn into a mini Smithsonian, but that's the economics of scale and individuals. So but so much great video and photography done in the name of archiving all of that. And FOMO will have to do, right? All right. So we'll see you back next Tuesday. Again, join us at 1 Pacific, 4 Eastern on Tuesdays. Like and subscribe, all of that stuff. As I said, hey, stay healthy, do all the things. Stay woke, check the sources. And trek well, everybody.